Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Doom Patrol, Episode 2. So, last time in our first episode, we basically just got to know our characters and really start to set up the plot. I'm not going to remember all of their names right away. I think Brendan Fraser's character is named Cliff. He was a race car driver who was having an affair with the nanny, while his wife was having an affair with his pit chief. Um, Things kind of escalated, and after a race, he violently attacked the pit chief. But sometime after, he wanted to make amends, and it seems like his wife did too, for the sake of their daughter at least. But they ended up getting in an accident, and yeah, his wife died. He almost died. He was very gravely injured and would have died if not for Timothy Dalton. That's it. Timothy Dalton's character. I was thinking Pierce Brosnan for some reason, but I was also thinking like, no, that's not right. No, it's the other one. No, it's Timothy Dalton. If it wasn't for Timothy Dalton's character, he would have died. But apparently his daughter is alive, even though he was told she died originally. So I'm still hoping that there's some kind of reunion there. We also have the former pilot played by Matt Bomer. Um, and he was a closeted gay man who was from a time where that was just not societal norm. And it was, he was, well, actually, I don't know if he was closeted because it did mention that he kind of always dreaded the looks he was given and like kind of always dreaded and kind of always saw himself as a monster and everything because of that. So maybe he wasn't actually closeted, but he was a gay man who, during a test flight of a new jet, he ended up having a passenger, which was some kind of weird force. I don't know how else to describe it. But it caused the jet to crash, and it kind of seemed to fuse with his body. Um, and it kept him alive and everything, but he's still horribly disfigured because of the crash and has to wear bandages all the time. So yeah, there's that. Um, we also have this girl who has, I think it's 43 different personalities, something like that. Each personality has its own powers as well, because of experimentation done on her. And it's just like, God, that's got to be so horrible to have to live with. And it's like, I've heard like all kinds of things about people who have this disorder in real life and how much trouble and issue it can be. And it's like, I can only imagine how hard it would be with that many personalities, especially after having been used as an experiment. And we also had this former actress, big name star, um, who ended up having an accident during filming one day. She fell through a dock and was infected by, again, some kind of force or something. It wasn't entirely clear, but it mutated her body, causing her to lose physical form, turning into more of this like blob like creature. Um, but it seems like she can hold a physical form if she like maybe focuses enough or whatnot, or if her emotional state's well enough. But she can hold a physical form. It's just sometimes it kind of like falls apart. It seems. Um, and these characters are kind of like being portrayed as like these misfit superheroes in training, basically. Like it's very clear, like yeah, it's a superhero show. They're going to be heroes, but Right now they're just kind of this band of misfits with powers and abilities and stuff that really just make them unique in comparison to other like heroes. Like when you think of heroes within DC, especially, you think of the likes of Superman, of Batman, and Wonder Woman. Those big three, especially. But of course, others like Flash and Green Lantern as well. But it's like you think outside of Batman, who just has excessive martial arts training and cool toys, you think of them like having these really cool powers, like just flight or laser vision or super strength or whatnot, super invulnerability, a healing factor, even stuff like that. Um, you don't usually think of like the kind of abilities we've seen. We don't even know what the one guy can even really do. Like, have we even seen anything that he can actually do? The pilot. I mean, because all we really know is that he had the plane crash and survived thanks to the Force. And I don't think we actually saw him do anything. But Brendan Fraser's character Cliff, he has like this excessive strength for sure, probably a little bit of invulnerability. So his are probably the most normal. And to be fair, though, we don't know all of the different powers that the one girl has because of all of her different personalities. Um, but the other girl, it's like she's a blob and everything, and it's like we haven't really seen how she could use that in combat or anything. Um, I don't know. It's just they seem kind of like these misfits who are going to come together and become stronger through that. But it also the first episode also did a big thing about like delving into their character and their emotional states and everything. And I'll admit, one of the things I was worried about when I first was going into this was about how serious it would be because I have heard this is a comedic series. So I was wondering how serious it would end up being, or if it would just be like, I don't know, Guardians of the Galaxy or something. Which, for those who don't know, I'm not a big fan of, comparatively to other stuff in the MCU. But I was wondering if it was going to be like that, or if it was going to actually take things a lot more seriously and actually have a lot more heart and depth and intrigue and strong writing to it. And luckily it did. Luckily, like there's a lot of comedy, yes, especially with Alan Tudyk's narration. Um, but most of it seems to be actually pretty like more serious than I would have thought. Um, so I very much appreciate that. Um, and in the end, after accidentally revealing themselves to this nearby town, our heroes go back and kind of get chewed out by by the professor or whatever you want to call him. Um, and they're like packing up to leave because something is coming because of their actions. And they decide, okay, we're going to stay. We can't abandon this town. Against the this again they decide this against the will of the professor, mind you. But and in the end, we reveal that Alan Tudyk's character, who we saw briefly at the beginning as a henchman getting experimented on, is now, at least for this season, the main villain, and kind of has like this weird form. I don't know how to describe it like at all. But it seems like he has some kind of intense powers that might include like black holes or something. I don't know exactly what was going on. We'll probably see more of it in this episode, but I'm interested to see what they do with him and how they take just our heroes in action against him, especially to defend this town. Um, but yeah, I'm very much interested. I enjoyed the first episode a lot more than I thought I was going to. Um, and I'm hoping that that continues. I'm really hoping that we continue to have a good show on our hands that just really sells these characters well. I've talked about in the past how I'm not a huge fan of live action superhero shows. I believe they, at least the ones I've seen, have all tended to just fall into like stereotypical television melodrama that just really feels so forced and fake and just takes you completely out of the immersion. And I just don't think any of them are really good. And just yesterday, I finished watching WandaVision, and it really didn't change my mind. It was better than those other kinds of shows like Arrow or whatnot, but not by that much. But I'm not going to get into all of my issues with WandaVision here. Um, but yeah, either way, I'm definitely interested to see where this one goes because this might be pretty good. We'll have to see. In the meantime, let's just get this started and hope episode 2 just is enjoyable, at least. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So a couple things. First off, that was Curtis Armstrong as the bug, and it's like, what? Why? I don't understand, but all right. I appreciate it. I like Curtis Armstrong. He was great in Dan Versus, fantastic in or not Smallville, Supernatural. Yeah, so... Second, speaking of Smallville, I was wondering who the actor for Silas Stone was. Because it's like I felt like I recognized him, but I couldn't place both his I felt like I recognized him like in what he looks like and his voice. Well, voice-wise, I definitely know him from Atlantis: The Lost Empire. He's Dr. Sweet in Atlantis. Great animated Disney movie. If you haven't seen it, I definitely suggest checking it out. I just recently rewatched it too, so that's definitely why I recognize his voice. As for he's also been in a lot of other like superhero stuff. He's voiced Vandal Savage, King Faraday, Green Arrow, all kinds of stuff. As for physical things I would recognize him from, he was a weatherman named Gale Force in Jingle All the Way, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Christmas movie from '96. He was Martian Manhunter in Smallville, so that's why I had Smallville on my mind. And various other things here and there that I would recognize him from. He was in Seinfeld as well. So, yeah, I definitely recognized him, and I just couldn't place it like while actually watching. So yeah, this episode we get a little bit more with Nobody, the character played by, oh my god, excuse me, the character played by Alan Tudyk, who breaks the fourth wall and is just really interesting in terms of personality. We find out that the donkey is apparently being used as a doorway, presumably with Nobody's powers, into this kind of pocket dimension where everything that was sucked into the black hole went. We actually get to see into it, and while in the pocket dimension, Nobody is able to give Cyborg Rita and Larry kind of a view into their memories, and just with Rita and Larry it's like, oh, okay, this is like the best parts of your life and everything. It's like these are your good memories, and with Cyborg it's like very bad memory. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about Cyborg. This episode confirmed some things for me that I don't think they mentioned in the first episode, but I was actually wondering about. And that is, does this take place within the same kind of world as, the DC heroes we know and love, the likes of the Justice League? And this episode blatantly tells us yes. Like, we get Cyborg, right there. We have mention of Bruce Wayne. We have mention of the Justice League. It's like this takes place in the same world. Obviously, not necessarily the same dimension as like the uh, Prime dimension from the comics or whatnot, but it does take place in a world where there is a Justice League. Bruce Wayne exists, so most likely Batman does. It's probably a very standard style one. So there's probably the heroes we know and love. Um, but Cyborg is definitely the one they're focusing on here, at least for now. We might get other characters going forward, but for now it's Cyborg and, well, obviously his father as well. So Cyborg in this is notably different than the Cyborg in the Zack Snyder Justice League. In Zack Snyder's Justice League, which again I reacted to like last week or whatever, um, Cyborg was very much hating what he had become. He saw himself as a monster. He felt him that being turned into that was a curse rather than a gift. And at first, he didn't really want to necessarily use it to help people. That wasn't his goal. He basically didn't even want to be. In this one, Cyborg, we can see, is much more accepting of his situation. And he wants actively to help people right away as kind of a penance for his mother's death, which he feels he caused. So definitely a different personality they're going with, which is fine because Cyborg's been done multiple different ways in a lot of different content. I mean, neither of these cyborgs are like the one from the 2000s animated series, and none of those three are the same as the one from the DC animated universe movies, such as Justice League versus Teen Titans and Justice League Dark Apocalypse, I think the last one's called. I haven't actually seen that one yet. I'm still a little behind on the animated movies. But that was like the last one in that continuity, basically. Um, isn't Cyborg in Young Justice as well? I think he is. But either way, so Cyborg has been portrayed differently, and so I'm fine with this portrayal. This one is definitely more of a heroic cyborg who has a very kind, heroic spirit to him. Not really very comical or anything though. Like again the cartoon animated version. Um, but he's also not brooding like the Justice League version, and that's fine. I'm fine with seeing different versions of these characters as long as they're still written well and characterized well and all of that. As long as they're not too comical, like Teen Titans Go, where it just ruins the characters. Um, so this episode also focused a lot on Jane and her different personalities, including one that is very dangerous, and doesn't really come out too often. Apparently, there's Jane and her personalities kind of have this place, I guess you could call it, called the Underground, which is kind of like an inner base for all of her personalities to live in. and it's just like they're at different points in the underground. Some of them come out easier, some of them aren't as quick to come out, yada yada yada. And so it's really interesting to get to learn more about that and just to see more about how she met with Niles and all. This episode definitely delved further into that, and I can appreciate that. Um, and we got to see just a lot more of the kind of views and personalities of both Rita and uh, why does his name keep this Larry? His name keeps escaping me. Rita definitely wanted to win a Golden Globe. She wanted to win an Oscar, whatever. She wanted awards. She wanted to be famous. She wanted to have that kind of notoriety, is the wrong word. She wanted to have that kind of fame to her. Um, and that's fair. In the first episode, she didn't come across as like she was very vain or anything, but in this one, it almost did. But I'm kind of thinking she wasn't actually vain, and that it was more of a coping mechanism now, because it's implied very heavily that she did something. And there was what looked like a baby crib. So it's implied that she did something. Maybe that um her acting and everything. Not maybe she loved acting and everything, sure, but she was so into it and wanted the awards and everything, the fame, as a way of coping, as a way of dealing with her own issues and mistakes. Um, I definitely think that there's more to it. She's not as vain as it might come across. I definitely believe that. And the big thing with that I somehow missed in the first episode, I guess, um, with Larry, is he was married. Because near the end of the episode, when it revealed that he was in love with the other guy, like I thought it was like, oh, then the woman they showed is maybe that's not actually his wife. Maybe that was just like some kind of trick or something. That was where my thought process had, and it's like, so my thought was like, oh, so he's gay and he's hiding it or whatnot. But in this, it kind of goes a little more into that. So it was his wife. It was his wife, and he had a kid too. It looked like, and the guy was his secret lover. Now, this could mean he's bi or pan. He doesn't necessarily have to be gay. He could be gay, though. There have been gay people who have, well, realized that after they have already been in relationships with women. There are lesbians who have realized that and come out after having been in relationships with men. It happens. So he could be. It's possible. Now, of course, there's the issue of infidelity here, which is never a good thing, mind you. But the idea that's brought up here is that he was in a marriage that he wasn't really in, that he really didn't have any love for. And it's not that he didn't care about his wife or child at all. It's just the love, the romantic love wasn't there for him. And that was that I think is going to be a big thing going forward for him, like as we uncover more about his character. We didn't get a lot with Cliff this episode, but I actually kind of appreciate that because we got so much with him last episode. Like he was the focal point of episode 1. So the fact that this episode focused more on everyone else kind of not only made sense, but also felt right. It allowed him to kind of experience the other characters, as well as us as viewers to learn more about them as well. We do get to see him doing stuff, but it's more of his interactions with other characters. characters, such as Cyborg and especially Jane in this episode, that stands out for him. Just having to learn to deal with them and learning to have to interact properly with them, even when he's emotional. Um, and his stuff with Jane in this episode was really good, really good. Um, so we kind of get the impression that Niles is alive and that nobody doesn't want them searching for him for some reason. So I definitely think there's more going on to this. So it's going to be interesting to find out what that is. Um, but yeah, I would say that I am invested in this series now. I enjoyed both of these first two episodes very much. Um, I love that they brought in like that this is taking place within the same kind of world as like Batman and Superman all. Because just because it's DC, you can't assume that. Watchmen is DC, and that doesn't take place in the same world. And I haven't seen the series for Watchmen, by the way, but I love the movie, the which I think is also Zack Snyder. I just think I like Zack Snyder superhero films. Watchmen, the Zack Snyder Justice League cut. It's like I think I just like Zack Snyder's take on superheroes. um, but yeah, it's like Watchmen is DC, but it's not in the same world as again Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman and all. So I wasn't sure if this would be, but now we see that it is, and I really like that. And I like how it's introduced. Like the first time we see anything of it, like even before Cyborg's actually revealed, we see like the messages on the the ATM. The guy is forcing this criminal is forcing this woman to withdraw from the ATM, get him money and everything. And we see the messages on the ATM talking to the criminal, and it's like, how rich do you want to be? Rich, super rich, Bruce Wayne rich. It's like just that first reveal. It's that this takes place in the same world as those other characters. It's so subtle but great. Um, and then it mentions the Justice League and everything. So it's like, yeah, it takes place in the same world. So I love that. Also, going back to the ATM, we saw in the Snyder cut, Cyborg did a very similar thing in that. That's really interesting that both of these had that kind of thing. Cyborg messing with an ATM, because in the Snyder cut, he had seen this woman who was pouring down on her luck, and she was getting evicted and whatnot. And so when she was withdrawing some of the very little money, like she had like $15, I think, in her account, he hacked into the ATM and had it like say, "Oh, by the way, you've won like this Gotham Bank contest or something. Here's I don't know exactly how much it was. I think it was $100,000, something like that. Here I'll just say 100,000. Here's $100,000, and it's like you see her breaking down and everything. You see just the humanity in Cyborg in that scene. It's honestly one of my favorite scenes in Zack Snyder's Justice League, and that's saying something because it was such a good movie and I loved it so much. But yeah, it very much reminded me of that. So even before it revealed Cyborg, that is instantly where my mind went when I saw that. When I saw the ATM and saw it like kind of messing with the criminal, it's like instantly my mind was kind of putting that connection together, but I wasn't like I wasn't confident in it pretty much at all. So then when Cyborg actually appeared, it's like, wait, is that? No, it's not, right? That's kind of where my mind was. My mind was like doing all these kind of like flips and whatnot, trying to like figure out if I was actually right about that. I'm glad I was though. Like I really do like Cyborg as a character. This one seems a lot less low tech than normal. Like not even counting the Justice League movie where he was made using a mother box. That does not count. But even then, other iterations, this one seems a lot lower tech. Um, not even just the fact that his eye broke and everything, and he needs to get like consistent repairs. Even just the stuff we see he can do, like outside of hacking the ATM, which is that's not as big of a thing, but it's like the stuff we've seen he can do doesn't seem to be as exciting, or like we haven't seen like any big cannon blasters or anything like that. Um, it's doubtful that he can open boom tubes like some versions of Cyborg have been able to. Um, so it's like it's a lower tech version, and I'm really interested to see how they implement that, and if they start to implement upgrades into that, because they kind of teased at that idea in this episode. Um, but yeah, I really think this was a smart idea, though. It helps bring in people who would probably still be unsure about the series at this point by introducing a pretty well-known DC character. Not to mention the mentions of Bruce Wayne in the Justice League. It's like it helps get people who are still unsure a little more into this, especially after the farting donkey, as Alan Tudyk notably broke the fourth wall to note. um, yeah, it's like that was a thing. Um, so this series definitely comes across to me as like a blend of parody. Like it definitely to a degree is parodying superhero content. That's undeniable. But at the same time, it's still taking itself kind of seriously and giving a legitimate story and legitimate characters who have legit emotion and depth. And this is going to be one of the most off the chain, off the wall comparisons I've ever made. But in that way, in the fact that it's a parody series, but has a lot of emotion, a lot of depth, a lot of actual story to it. In that way, it reminds me of the anime Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. I know, completely out of nowhere comparison, but think about it. Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid is unashamedly a parody series. It is parodying a lot of the tropes in anime and manga. That is a big point to it. But one of the also big appeals to it is the likable characters who have notable depth to them. It's the actual story and progression of these characters. And it actually gives us some serious emotional depth at points. Like, yeah, a lot of it's just parody, a lot of it's comedy, a lot more so than this, but still. It just kind of reminded me of that while I was thinking about it. And it's just like this is one of the weirdest comparisons I've ever made. But whatever. I'm not upset at that comparison because I do love both. I do love both Dragon Maid and DC Comics and stuff. So hey, why not? Weird as fuck comparison, but I'm fine with it. um, but yeah, I would love to hear either way what you guys think of episode 2 of Doom Patrol. As always, no spoilers in the comments. I wish to continue on with this as spoiler free as possible. But I would still love to hear your thoughts and everything on what we got in this episode. Um, yeah, it's just I wonder if the Curtis Armstrong bug is important in any way. Like, is that going to be a thing, or is that just one little joke in this episode? I really am. I'm really confused by that. But like I said, tell me your thoughts. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.